Okay, so I'll start then. I will do a very brief introduction because obviously I'd like to get into the material, but obviously if you're not familiar with me, then I will go into that. So it was the year 1993, I deliberately, after many months, years of synchronicity, unexplained things happening, I deliberately decided to set out to connect to a spirit guide. And I found a book on channeling. It was all about meditations to make a connection to your spirit guide. So I read this book. I then embarked on doing these meditations. And over a period of a few weeks, I did make connections with several entities and eventually the one true guide, which is what the book was about. So that was 1993. I've been communicating with this one spirit guide who called himself White Spirit and told me he was from the 5th dimension. I was communicating with him for a long time, not in a work capacity or anything like that. I had no intention of speaking in front of people or telling anyone what I did. It was something very private that I just told a handful of people. And this went on for several years, and I did do the odd reading for spiritually aware friends, that sort of thing. There were even members of my family who had no idea what I did. I just simply didn't talk about it. Loads of friends, even now, there's friends that have no idea. So this went on for several years, and then I think it was around the year 2000 that they would talk to me, show me things, teach me things. This could be in the day, this could be in the middle of the night. This would be it started off in meditation only. I had to go into meditation to make this connection. And then after a while, it started to happen outside of meditation in my everyday life, in the shops, wherever I was. So fast forward to about the year 2000, White Spirit told me he was leaving and a new guidance would be stepping in. I was really upset about this because I'd been working with him for years. But he explained that it was still himself. He was just going through an upgrade. It was another version of him. So over a period of a few days, when I kind of shut myself away and went through this very intensive period where White Spirit sort of left and this other being came in, this beautiful being that looked like an angel, white with big white wings. But I found thinking of this being as an angel to be a bit too sort of grand, really. And I thought, I can't possibly be talking to an actual angel. It's a being with white wings. And eventually, after a few days, this being morphed into 9 beings. So I counted them, saw that there were 9. I asked them what their name was, and they said there's no need for me to know what their name was, but they understood that because I was in the 3rd dimension that I had, we have labels and names here, so they tried to show me a name which was just an unpronounceable frequency. So I said, well, you've got white wings, there's 9 of you, and you're a collective consciousness. So how about I call you the white-winged collective consciousness of 9? And they said that was fine. They were okay with that. So I carried on talking to them. Because they'd upgraded from White Spirit from the 5th dimension into the 9, I now refer to them as the 9 for short, because white-winged collective consciousness of 9 is about the longest name for anyone's guidance that's out there, I think. So I would speak to them and ask them, well, if you've upgraded from the 5th dimension to the 6th dimension, is there another form that you take? And they said, yes, there is. And I said, I'd like to see. And so they would leave the form of these 9 white-winged angelic beings, and then they would show me more that they were. So we'd be looking at light and sound, we'd be looking at cosmic presentations, we'd be looking at suns and stars, we'd be looking at galaxies, we'd be looking at sacred geometry, matrices like giant snowflakes, wavy lines, electrical fields, that kind of thing. In the early days, I was a bit sort of blown away by all that, and so I preferred to work with the focus of the 9. And even now, I like to have the 9 there because they are more humanoid, if you like. They usually have human faces. Sometimes they have faces that are more like birds. Sometimes they have faces of light and you can only just make out their features. But I am much more comfortable now with the cosmic presentation and the matrices and the stars and the wavy lines and the frequencies. I go with all of that now. So that was around the year 2000. In the year 2007, coming into 2008, they started to talk to me about these changes on Earth, on this planet. Now, they'd been talking to me about this back in 1993, but nothing had happened regarding what they were saying to me. They were talking about the Ascension, and they were speaking so much about the Ascension that I expected it to happen within sort of 6 months, and I thought I would be, ascending into another being and going off to another planet. And when things didn't happen within 6 months, I kind of let that go. So when they started talking about the Ascension again in the year 2008, how they actually told me about this and got me sort of alerted and ready for work was, I used to do a lot of drama right from the age of young, 6, 7, 8. My parents were in the theatre. My mother was a dancer. My father was an opera singer, so I grew up around the theatre. And I did a lot of drama, a little bit professional, mostly amateur. And so the terminology dress rehearsal and first opening night was terminology I understood. So in 1993, they would say to me, this is the Ascension, but this is a dress rehearsal. It's not the show. We will let you know when it's showtime, when it's opening night. And, that was 1993, and they never did. I never got this message to say, it's showtime, until 2008, so it's quite a long time. And they just casually said, do you remember when we told you it was a dress rehearsal of the Ascension? And I said, yes. Okay, well, now it's showtime, now it's performance. I'm like, what? I'm crazy and freaking out. I'm like, what, today, right now? Well, this time period. Oh my goodness, what do you want me to do? That kind of thing. So basically, what they wanted me to do was tell everybody. And I said, tell everybody what? You mean tell everyone I speak to you? Yes. What, like who? Everyone. Well, how am I going to do that? And they pointed to the internet. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to speak on the internet somehow. So I remember going online, having a hunt around, found YouTube, saw that there were lots of other people sort of channeling and doing similar things. And I said to my partner at the time, now husband, if I was to bring some of the nines channeling through, could you make a video like this person's done, like visuals and everything to go with it? And he said, yeah, I'd love to. And it was strange for me because I hadn't really channeled as such in front of Daniel at that time, even though we'd been together for quite a few years. We'd had spiritual connections and we'd had spiritual discussions, but I hadn't actually done direct channeling. So it was a new thing for our relationship as well. So anyway, I uploaded my first video to YouTube in 2008, quite nervously, wondering if anyone really had, wanted to hear what the nine was saying and what I was saying. And they did, and people would watch the video, and then I had people emailing me and asking questions right from the very first video. And funnily enough, it was April 2008. So we're now in April, so this is 11 years this month of being online. So basically, this is 11 years. I've been making videos on YouTube for 11 years, bringing forward the messages that have got more and more complex, more and more intense. The terminology has changed, the connection has changed and upgraded, and so on and so forth. I opened up to do personal readings around 2010, which I did for 7 years with people all over the world, mostly on Skype, some face-to-face. So I did readings regularly all the time. And that was great fun and wonderful, and I met some fantastic people. And then in, I think, 2016 I channeled the first book. I thought it was another video. So I sat down to bring forward the channeling for another video. And then it just went on and on and on. And I remember thinking, how on earth am I going to tie up these concepts in a 10-minute to 20-minute video when it's going in all these tangents? And then I realised this is a longer piece, this is a book. So it wasn't necessarily a plan, even though I'd felt that I was going to write a book one day for many, many years. And then the second book I set out to write, didn't realise it would be a follow-on from the first. And then the third book, that was kind of partly me and partly the 9 working together. Now I know that, my role is to speak on the videos, but also to bring forward information in writing, because you can reach people in a different way. And with the videos, they're short snippets of information. So it's a short, sharp activation, but the book can be read and you can take your time, and if you haven't quite processed a sentence, you can stop and take a rest and come back to it, so you can work with it differently. I haven't got many available, but there is, I think, 2 copies of the first book, which is called Masters of the Matrix, and it looks like 3 copies of the third book, which is Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame. The second book is Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template. They can all be bought online on Amazon. So for this talk, I've brought forward some new channeling that has not gone on YouTube at all. So it's completely unique and original, and you're the first people to hear it. What it was when Jackie asked me to do the talk, I was in the middle of planning the wedding, so I'm kind of thinking, what shall I talk about? And ancient wisdom for a new age just came through. I thought, ancient wisdom for a new age? I haven't really talked about that before. So that's what I told Jackie I would be talking about. But obviously I didn't turn to the 9 until after the wedding and say, okay, we're doing this talk now. Have you got anything to say? And so they have. So in the write-up to this talk, I wrote here that I would explore ancient wisdoms from prehistory cultures known as Atlantis and Lemuria and draw a relevant parallel with our modern times today. So I thought when I wrote that I would be looking at information that was given to us as humanity in Atlantean and Lemurian times and drawing a parallel with information given now. However, that's not quite what the 9 are saying, and that's not quite how it works when it comes to exploring these ancient wisdoms. I also put here that topics such as channeling, psychic awareness, crystal technology, and the accelerated Stargate Ascension system will be discussed. Obviously, I've spoken about channeling already and how I've made this connection with the 9, and that, again, is psychic awareness. So I will get to discussing crystal technology and the accelerated Stargate Ascension system if I can as well, although that's in the channeling as well. So my question to the 9 is, how can ancient wisdom teachings from Lemuria and Atlantis assist us now in modern day 2019? So this is what they said. So, understanding that which we call the Lemurian code and the Atlantean code is not necessarily about you researching and intellectually understanding philosophies and literature from these time periods known as Lemurian and Atlantean. This is about accessing the memory codes within in order to bring these wisdom teachings, as you call them, to the surface of your awareness. Let us begin by looking at what the Lemuria and Atlantis that you are aware of actually are. It is easier for the third dimensional human mind to envisage or visualize Lemuria as a place. Tall sandstone buildings, dress attire of neutral and natural palette, such as sackcloth and sandal, simple peoples living in harmony with the animals, birds, fish or fowl. Atlantis with its tall, geometrically designed, crystal architectural structures, advanced technologies, and much wizardry and magic. Whilst these presentations are indeed true, they are memory codes rather than actual images of times past. You see, Lemuria and Atlantis were not places as such. They were time periods. They existed within the planet you know as Earth, when Earth was a 4th and somewhat 5th density planet. Your memories of these time periods and your accessing of the Lemurian and Atlantean codes are what brings about the realization of these wisdom teachings you speak of. Perhaps we can refer to these as wisdom knowings, or indeed simply wisdom. These codes are within you all. You carry them within the very DNA that is your human template. All those who have found themselves drawn into the reality whereby they access our words, written or spoken, have activated these Lemurian and Atlantean codes within. They are indeed travellers of the way and students of inner knowings. Wisdom seekers and wisdom teachers in the making, if you will. As you access these codes, memories, knowings and wisdom, you yourself create the same environmental structure around and within your planet that existed within Lemurian and Atlantean times. Meaning, you recreate fourth and somewhat fifth density upon your planet. Your DNA and your environment are one. You are affected by your environment, and in turn, the environment is affected by you. This is what we mean when we say living in harmony with the Earth. The Lemurian and Atlantean time periods on your Earth, in a linear sense, preceded the time period you are now in, which we call the Fifth Age or the Fifth Earth. We could explain this by saying it's the fifth time period since Earth's inception, and this would be so. Yet it is more accurate to say that the potential within the grid or matrix of your planet, within this renewed or regenerated planet you know as Earth, holds a potential for fifth dimensional experience. A fourth and somewhat fifth density template in alignment with fifth DNA strand activation. This is simply the environmental match to the DNA activation within the collective consciousness of humanity. The Lemurian simple living, if you will, was a harmonious interaction with the environment, root and heart chakras aligned. The Atlantean technological age was a harvesting of the Earth's planetary resources rather than an exchange. Whilst this led to great riches and knowledge, it also led to an imbalance. This simplifies a most complex situation. Let us just say that there were magical and aware individuals, as the Atlantean times were an awakening of the third eye chakra en masse. These aware individuals were known as priests. Although that which you may know as wizard or magician is more accurate given your modern terminology. These priests could see the downfall of Atlantis and all the Atlantean worlds, and so they created a fail-safe, if you will. They projected themselves as soul matrix beings into a cohesive, intentional, incarnational line, leaving memory codes intact. They created their own future incarnations so they would survive the destruction of their worlds. This is known in your biblical stories as the fall of Babylon. This ensured the wisdom teachings of reality. The awakened third eye chakra template and all the crystalline structures thus made in matter would not be lost, but would instead be preserved in rock, stone, crystal, blood and bone. You may know this within your New Age philosophies and teachings as the 13th crystal skull. Here lies the codices waiting to be accessed and explored. This Atlantean code was projected forth from a handful of these priests. These priests are known to many of you as the original souls. The focused, intentional, cohesive, incarnational magic created literally thousands of incarnations, millions of incarnations, brought forward from the pre-matter awareness intelligences that we refer to as the dragon's breath or the cosmic fire. These incarnations created from intentional, focused, cohesive Atlantean projection, scattered at first within the quantum field of all that is. Yet they heard the calling home, if you will, and coalesced and grouped together in a sacred reunion, set for the end of the Mayan calendar timeline, the 13th Baktun, or that which you may know as 2012. These incarnations projected forth by the Atlantean priests, masters and magicians of space and time are you. each one of you that hears our words now, we have provided the memory triggers as a codex within our transmission, which is directly received by you. The wisdom teachings from the Atlantean times are your own memories and knowings. They were preserved within the very matrices of your own energy system and within the matter that is your tissues, organs, muscles, skeletal system, brain patterning, hair, nails, and blood. Rich within your DNA are these codices, and they are brought to life within and through each of you in your own unique ways. Some of you chose genetic incarnations, leaning towards a penchant for the work of the artist. So through picture, image, diagram, colour, shade, or geometric formation, you could bring through your wisdom teachings to the world. Some of you chose incarnations that would give you the gift of the understanding of words. The speakers, the writers, the teachers amongst you. So too, those who use the body as art form in expression through dramatic art or dance. Some of you chose incarnations rich in genetic awareness of sound, creating musicians, toners, chanters, mantra meditators, and all those who could pass these codes to the world through frequency or musical note. Then some of you chose genetic incarnations that would give you the understanding of pure mathematics, sacred geometry, and the sciences. Then through resonation and radiation of the DNA matrix fields, you were able to pass these codes to others standing within receptivity of them. Meaning, each of you, whilst you may hold a predominant creative template within which to do your work and live your mission, such as art, poetry, writing, drama, dance, music, mathematics and science, you each have the ability to embody all of these traits. You are each of you the artist, poet, scribe, actor, dancer, musician, mathematician and scientist. You are each of you all of these things. With the unique signature you hold, the unique pattern with which you work, and the unique creativity you present, this ensures the Atlantean codes are passed to your world and throughout your world. The Lemurian codes, naturally inherited by the early Atlanteans and held within genetic memory fields as harmony, compassion, and natural empathy, were also carried through to many, yet not all, of the projected incarnations. This created a stream of heart-centered soul incarnations polarizing within the service to others field, and also a stream of high awareness, third eye, intelligent soul incarnations without the activated heart. These incarnations, without the activated heart, predominantly polarized within the service to self polarity field. The early forming third dimensional Earth held polarity as a free will learning tool. So the projected Atlantean incarnations were birthed into a polarized reality, and they fell into the match that was their original makeup as an Atlantean priest. Your human race today is made up of much diversity, and souls have incarnated from infinite galaxies, star systems, and universes. The Atlantean priests are a specific number, if you will, known also on your planet as starseeds. Those that polarized into the positive polarity are known as starseeds. All starseeds, regardless of their inception point, will hold the Atlantean and the Lemurian codices through the phenomenon known as replication. We digress here into uncharted territory outside the scope of this transmission. Suffice it to say, each and every starseed holds the memories and the codices of the Atlantean priesthood. They are each a part of the 13th crystal skull, and it is they that hold the codes for the wisdom teachings for a new age. Ancient wisdom made modern through the awakening of your true memories and presented through your unique creativity. What then are these wisdom teachings? Coming in through art, poetry, writings, dramatic art, bodily movement, dance, music, mathematics, sacred geometry and science. What are these wisdom teachings? They are about empowerment, sovereignty, and self-realization. Taking everything back to the central point, the middle road, known as the Tao. Balance, holistic living, unity, standing strong within the focused awareness of one's own paradigm. The knowing that one is all things and is the creator, creatrix, and architect of all things. The wisdom teachings present in a myriad of ways, as infinite as infinity itself, yet each come back to the core of the ultimate truth. And that ultimate truth is that you are all that there is, and all that there is you. We are the white-winged collective consciousness of 9. So that was what they brought forward in response to my question: how can ancient wisdom teachings from Lemuria and Atlantis assist us now in modern day 2019? As I said, I expected them to come forward and bring forward some kind of ancient knowledge, perhaps preserved in some kind of manuscript that could help us today. And yet that manuscript where these ancient teachings are preserved within is within crystal, rock, blood and bone, and within our DNA. So the wisdom teachings are wisdom knowings and wisdom. They're all there within us all. So I am going to go through, obviously I can't go through an analysis of the entire transmission because that would take a long time. So I've picked out just key points to look at. And obviously, if there's anything that you heard there that you'd like to ask further questions about, we can look at that afterwards. So looking at the very first part of this, understanding that which we call the Lemurian code and the Atlantean code. So they're saying here that this is a code, it's a pattern, it isn't really a place, it is a frequency. It's not about you researching and intellectually understanding philosophies and literature. So it can be. We have philosophies and literature coming from, ancient times, years and years ago, that's preserved through all the religions and all these amazing texts that are available to us. That is part of our journey. But the Lemurian and Atlantean philosophies and literature, because that time period fell, it had to be preserved in some way outside of books and texts. It's been preserved within us and within the environment around us. So this is about accessing the memory codes within in order to bring these wisdom teachings, as you call them, to the surface of your awareness. So it's simply about activating the knowing within you that each and every one of you have. Whilst these presentations are indeed true, so that's talking about the presentations of Lemuria being a place with tall sandstone buildings and Atlantis being a place with these crystal architecture, those presentations are true. They're presentations of different constructs and places within that time period. That time period was outside of Earth. We're looking here at Earth within this transmission, but this was a solar system-wide time period. So Atlantis and Lemuria was outside of Earth into other planetary systems. Because the planet was 4th density and somewhat 5th density, then that makes Earth merged with the solar system, if you like. Earth isn't just a planet on her own. Earth is a combined planet with a whole quantum field of planets and a quantum field of solar systems. And that's the reality that Atlantis and Lemuria were. So these presentations we interpret within our third dimensional way of thinking of these sandstone buildings for Lemuria and these crystal buildings for Atlantis. Those presentations are true. They are ultimately memory codes. So when you think of Lemuria and these beautiful, harmonious people living a simple life, wearing sackcloth and sandals and meditation and ceremony, and you look at Atlantis and the wizardry and the magic and the working with crystals and all the healing and all the amazing technology they had, when we visualize those images within, we are activating those memories. It's a code. So it's like the DNA is saying, oh, she's thinking about Lemuria. She's thinking about Atlantis. That means she's waking up. That means we need to change our form. We need to change our form as a DNA structure. We need to change from carbon to crystalline. We need to bring in more light. That's what's happening. And the DNA, the intelligence of the DNA, responds to every thought we have, not just a thought about Lemuria or Atlantis. It responds to every single thought we have. So Lemuria and Atlantis were not places, as I've said. They were time periods. And they existed within the planet you know as Earth. So we know this planet as a planet. But when Earth was a fourth and somewhat fifth density planet, we didn't perceive the planet in the same way that we do in the third dimension. We would see, and many of us are already moving into that now, we see planet Earth as more than one planet. It can be more than one shape. Some people are seeing planet Earth as flat. And on the third dimension, people are looking at them and thinking that they're crazy. And those who see the flat Earth are finding that their reality is confirming what they know to be true, so they're getting constant confirmation that the Earth is flat. They would be right from the paradigm that they are looking from. And the others who are looking at the paradigm from a spherical Earth would also be right, because Earth is not just a planet, it's a quantum field, and we're able to understand this when we access these memories. All those who found themselves drawn into the reality whereby they access our words. So when the nine speak, there is like a frequency, a DNA radiation put out, and everyone that comes into the vicinity of the words that they give out, it's part of their own synchronistic, unique, meaningful, subjective experience that they come into alignment with hearing the information. So everyone who's come into that alignment, which is all of you sitting here now and anyone watching this talk from wherever they are, they have activated these Lemurian and Atlantean codes within. You wouldn't find your way to those words if that activation hadn't happened. Everything is to do with destiny and synchronicity. Everything's pre-planned. As you access these codes, memories, knowings, and wisdom, you yourself create the same environmental structure around and within your planet that existed within Lemurian and Atlantean times. So this structure that I'm speaking of, which is a quantum structure, it is seeing Earth not just as one spherical planet, but seeing many different alternate versions of Earth. And seeing Earth in much deeper ways, actually making a connection with Earth as if she were a being of consciousness herself, which of course she is. As you access these codes, these memories and knowings, and you bring forward this wisdom, that accessing, that new paradigm you hold, because you are one with your environment, your thoughts are responded to by the DNA. The DNA changes create your thoughts to be different, and the DNA and your thoughts are at one with the environment. So you create the environment that you are living in through this new paradigm, through this new consciousness. So if you think multidimensionally, if you think fifth dimensionally, if you like, which is this quantum way of thinking outside of this 3D box, when you think that way, your own reality begins to mirror that, and anyone who has been understanding what fifth dimensional living is about, they will be experiencing this. But when, say, 4 people all have that thought at the same time, they affect that space even more powerfully. And when thousands and millions of people think the same way, they actually change the structure of the environment itself and the planet and the solar system. It's a two-way thing. So as the planet changes, so too does humanity. And as humanity's thought process changes, so too does the planet and the environment. Your DNA and your environment are one. You are affected by your environment, and in turn the environment is affected by you. So when I say environment, I'm not necessarily saying the trees and the houses and the beaches. I'm actually speaking, and it is the environment and the trees, the houses and the beaches, but it is the energetic environment, the intelligence that is around us all, this unseen consciousness. You are at one with it. Now, if you were a scientist, you might call this particles. You might call this the God particle. If you are a very spiritually orientated person, you might say that you connect with angels every day. If you were a religious person, you would say you sense God. It's all the same thing. This is what we mean when we say living in harmony with the earth. So living in harmony with the earth is obviously not plundering the earth's resources and honouring the animals and honouring the plants and all those things. But it's also understanding how your energy system is living in harmony with the environmental energy system, because it's not outside of you. Your energy system is not just in you. Outside of you, there is no outside of you from that perspective. You are all one. The environment is simply an externalized aspect of you. And when you start to wake up fifth dimensionally, this is how you start to think. Your paradigm is that you are connected with all things, and that's the unity consciousness that so many talk about. That's what that is. The awakened third eye chakra template and all the crystalline structures thus made in matter would not be lost, but would instead be preserved in rock, stone, crystal, blood and bone. So we are actually looking at entities that lived, beings that lived in these time periods, who could see a potential downfall of their worlds. So how could they preserve the information that would be needed for their future selves, if you like? So they created these intentional incarnations. The 9 call this death to birth conscious transfer. When you are spiritually aware, you are able to project yourself into another incarnation. And you can do this on a single linear thread. So as you are passing from one lifetime, you can draw into your reality if you understand how to create a line of intention to a new incarnation. You would have to be well studied spiritually to be able to do this. You'd be in a good state of balance, but you'd be able to call a new incarnation into your reality. And then when you incarnate into the next life, you get to a certain point where you remember. I remember projecting myself into this incarnation. I remember the death to birth conscious transfer, and then you start to remember what you did in that life. But that is a linear version of what I'm saying. So this is sort of A to B, if you like, incarnation 1 and incarnation 2. What I'm talking about here is thousands of individuals working together, and they were fifth density, fourth density and fifth density, which is kind of higher than fifth dimension, really. So they had the ability to work in a group sense. There's many, many ways of interpreting this. We could say that these were beings who lived in an ancient time period, who were priests, who were magical and able to do this. But there are other ways of looking at this. We could actually say that the fabric of reality, those particles, that God particle, stores memory without a physical body. When the physical body has, left and that person moves on, their memories can be stored within kind of like a field of memories. And those memories are able to coalesce and create a new incarnation. And groups do it. So you can have a group of, say, 40 people who will all incarnate together and experience lifetime after lifetime as a group. But you can actually have a planetary consciousness that does that. And that's what happened here. The Atlantean projection was a planetary consciousness, projecting forth its memory system into another planetary consciousness. And that's every single person who's awakened is that. And the Atlantean template is simply a word that we have used, coming, I think, originating from Plato, talking about Atlantis being this place that was buried under the sea because it fell and rose. Atlantis will rise again. That is metaphoric for simply the downfall of this society, this society that held a higher consciousness, the downfall of that society, and the projecting forth and saving the memories so that the memories wouldn't be taken away. So a planetary consciousness can be when I say destroyed, it's not possible for anything to be destroyed. Everything is reused and recycled when it comes to the ultimate consciousness. But a planetary consciousness can lose its memory field and can go through what's known as a fall system and can then recycle itself and start again, if you like. So nothing's preserved. The Atlantean individuals, and they're known by many names, they knew how things worked within the cosmic structure. They didn't want to lose the memories. They did not want the knowings and the wisdoms to be lost through this fall system. They wanted to preserve it, so they created the intentional line. And basically, they incarnated back at around 2012. So that's kind of what I'm saying, and it's multi-layered. So the awakened third eye chakra template and all the crystalline structures thus made in matter would not be lost. So the awakened third eye chakra template is the awareness, the intelligence, the knowing, the realization held within a physical body. Not outside of the physical body, but held within a physical body. These beings did not want that to be lost, and these beings are all you, they're us. So instead, these crystalline structures, these higher dimensional codes, were preserved in rock. So what that means is in structure that is in harmony with the planet. So we're talking about rock that's formed naturally, kind of like salts and rocks that would form under the sea and on the land, something that's not been infiltrated. So, if you see these high-rise buildings made with weird cement and loads of plastic in, that's not the rock I'm talking about. I'm talking about real living rock that has formed naturally. The codes are there. So if you go to Stonehenge or Avebury, those codes are preserved in those stones. You only have to touch them, and I know we're not allowed to at Stonehenge anymore, except maybe once a year on the solstice. The receptive individuals that are able to feel these codes and feel these energies can stand and they can hold the stone. And whilst they might not get, it can be very, very, very unique and individual about how it happens. They might not necessarily get a voice saying, hello, I am the spirit of the rock and I'm here to tell you whatever. It might happen like that. But what it is it's an exchange. So the energy, the frequency of the rock will flood through into the system, into the human body. That person will then go away, and over the next few days or weeks will start to have downloads and memories. And same with stone, so smaller rocks, same sort of thing. Crystal, so we've got the crystals, the formulated crystals and the gemstones all hold these codes. When we go further and look at the crystal skulls, these form together to create this sort of network, this matrix of communication. You can access a higher flow of information at a different form. So rock might have quite a sort of a denser frequency that you can't decode so easily. The crystal skull matrix will speak to you because it's a skull, so it's in a human form, and that's why they were made. And blood and bone, so that's within humans. Our blood, and this is another thing, some individuals have switched off the frequency codes within the blood through their lifestyle. So they might be drinking tons of alcohol, they might be very, very angry, they might be very depressed, they may, all sorts of things can sort of turn off those little codes. And so the blood is just sort of flowing and keeping them alive, but it's remaining within this carbon-based third dimensional structure. Those that activate the blood will be living a much more harmonious lifestyle. They will be eating healthier foods. They will be, exercising and doing yoga or singing or whatever it is that they're doing. And they will be working with higher emotions. They'll be joyful and blissful and happy. They're still going to get their share of challenges and difficult times, but predominantly they're learning, and that creates this activation within the blood. And again, with bone, the memories are stored within the skeletal system, within the bone, that different form of memories. So the crystals, the rocks, the blood and bone are all the same, and we can connect with them. That's why so many people want to go to Stonehenge and Avebury. They don't really often know why they're drawn there. You can often say to people, why did you go to Stonehenge? Why did you go to Avebury? Oh, I don't know, I just feel so amazing, and we did this fantastic ceremony, and you just feel really fantastic. Obviously, some people will know why, but some people don't know why, but they're drawn there. It's magnetic. It's like a magnet, literally, a magnetized particle that draws us all together. Like attracts like. And that is what the 9 meant when they said replication. It's repeating a pattern over and over and over. And that's just a very simple way of putting it. The focused, intentional, cohesive, incarnational magic created literally thousands of incarnations. So one metaphoric way of looking at this would be to see maybe 12 Atlantean priests, beings that were multidimensional in their thinking, that were able to work magic, retaining within the 12, and I'm not saying there were 12, this is a metaphor to explain this, but within the 12 they were able to retain their memory. They had worked within themselves to get to a place of self-realization where they were able to carry their memories through leaving the body. So they did what's called individualize. So some individuals, when they pass over, depending on where they are in their consciousness, their memories can sort of dissipate and become part of a whole. It's not an individual memory. So let's say, Jack remembers being a builder, but say Jack does not live a life of harmonious living and spiritual awareness. So when Jack leaves his body, his memories of being a builder sort of dissipate. But let's say there's John, and John has lived a very spiritual life and has worked with many spiritual disciplines and practices, and he's learned to focus and coalesce his paradigm. When he passes away, John is retained. The individualization of John is retained and is saved like a template and can be used again. And so these 12 priests created this and were able to retain all their memories of their entire lifetimes and hold them, but because they knew how to do what's called replication, they were able to create thousands of incarnations. This is really a metaphor, and what the metaphor is saying is that the few can create the many. So when you look at perhaps Jesus Christ as a biblical figure is one person, the second coming of Christ is not Jesus coming back again as one person. The second coming of Christ is a Christ consciousness, and it is everyone living that same consciousness that the one, Jesus Christ, was. So the one can create the many because we are all one unified soul structure. And we don't have to stick to linear rules. The third dimensional brain thinks in a linear sense. So if I was Mary in a past life, I'm now Magenta, and then next time I'll be Sam, and it doesn't work that way. You project forth much of yourself. So if somebody's held a lot of their memory system, they are, if you like, huge within that cosmic store of memories. And if somebody has only coalesced a little bit of their memory system, they'll be smaller, if you like. Again, metaphors here. So the focused, intentional, cohesive, incarnational magic created literally thousands of incarnations brought forward from the pre-matter awareness intelligences that we refer to as dragon's breath or cosmic fire. Fire spelt Phire. This is explained in much more depth in the book Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame. Dragon's breath, the reason they call it that is because when you see this memory field, this field of living memories, so these are consciousness structures that are beings created from the memories that we, as incarnated individuals, retained. When you actually see that clairvoyantly, it looks like a flame. It is called the flame and known as the flame, the eternal flame. It looks like fire, and a dragon breathes fire. A dragon is also a metaphor for the raised energy. Earlier, Dee was talking about us raising fire and raising heat because I had to turn the heaters off. So that's what the dragon does. We each have that within us. We each have the dragon within us. So it's dragon's breath. But The dragon only is able to breathe the fire, breathe the dragon's breath and create the cosmic fire when the dragon is able to leap through the ring of fire. And what that means is you are able to retain your memories through death by creating within you a Stargate. That's the Ascension Stargate system. You are a Stargate and you are able to travel through your own Stargate. This is also known as the Merkabah, which probably many of you have learned about in your spiritual journey. When I first heard about the Merkabah, I found it to be very complicated, and I thought, all this talk about Merkabah and how do you do it and what kind of shape is it and how do you activate it? And the Nine have taught me, by the time you get to the place where you're saying, what's the Merkabah? I really want to activate it. I want to be able to activate this Merkabah and fly off into this geometric shape like all these spiritual teachings are saying. By the time you've got to the point where you're asking those questions, you've already activated your Merkabah. It's a pattern. It doesn't. You don't have to use these words. You don't have to use the words Merkabah. You don't have to use the words dragon's breath or cosmic fire. These are not the words. These are simply the terminology that the Nine use when they speak to me. So I'm sharing the model, if you like, that the Nine present. But the true model is your model. It's the words you pick up, the words you see in your mind, the words you hear in your dreams, the synchronicity that comes into your life. That's the right path for you, not someone else. So what I present is a path that may resonate with a lot of people, but it doesn't mean it's the path. These incarnations, created from intentional, focused, cohesive Atlantean projection, scattered at first within the quantum field of all that is. So these memories created, let's say, from this metaphoric 12 Atlantean priests, when they preserved their memories into these thousands of potential new incarnations, they scattered throughout time and space into all these planetary systems and all these timelines. So this is why we say that the starseeds have come from many different planets, many different systems. They were scattered. They incarnated all over the place, not just Earth. They were incarnating throughout time and space. But they heard the calling home, if you will. So what that is when a planet reaches a point where a certain amount of individuals are wanting something. So it has to be a critical mass. It has to be the right amount of, not individuals, but the amount of consciousness they produce has to get to a certain point. When they're all thinking the same thing, and this can potentially be, 10 people or 10 million, it depends on what the particular thought is, the particular paradigm is. When they get to a certain point, it gives out a signal to this memory field, as in something needs to change. So metaphorically, we could say there was a call put out by Earth, heard by all these souls on all these different planets who thought to themselves, oh, Earth is in trouble. Earth is wanting change. Earth wants to be free. The humans want to be free. Let's all incarnate down on Earth and see if we can help. That is a metaphor, and you will hear many channels actually talk as though that is literal. And there is a literal component to it, because some of these beings literally have consciously incarnated on Earth from other planetary systems. But ultimately what this means is the memory field was called. The memories were called to regroup and come back to Earth to make this change, because Earth, humanity, wants a change in this area. The specific call I'm talking about was about freedom, from polarity, freedom from control, freedom from not being able to flourish spiritually, and freedom from being deliberately infiltrated and interfered with. That was kind of the signal. So these memories, these living memory fields, came back into incarnation that were the Atlantean priests originally. That's why every single person who's a starseed will have the memory codes of the Atlantean priests within them. So they heard the calling home and they coalesced. They grouped together in a sacred reunion. So that's all these beings from all this entire quantum cosmic field coming together and saying, let's go to Earth. That's the metaphor. But what that is a scattered memory system coalesced into So we're looking at a large, scattered, spiraling matrix that coalesced into a different geometric form, an intentional line to come back to Earth. That sacred reunion, which was, and I'm saying was as if it was in the past, actually this is happening now. These memories are coalescing right now. There is no past, present or future within that field of memory. So as that sacred reunion takes place when it comes to memories outside of physical form, that sacred reunion takes place within physical form as well. And that's what we are doing, the spiritually aware individuals, around the time of 2012. You will hear people talk about the great gathering, the great awakening, the cosmic reunion, the starseed reunion. It's all the same thing. Right now, me talking to you, we are having our sacred reunion, which mirrors the frequency of those individualized memory matrices that are lining up and are coming down onto Earth. We could also look at this another way and say that the galactic core is projecting forth light codes. So you may have heard people say that the galactic core, there's light codes streaming in from the central sun and from our actual physical sun, and literally we do have actual light codes coming from our physical sun in the form of these solar projections and these flares. This is all the physical part of what I'm talking about. These memories within this cosmic fire grouping together and coming back to answer this call. That is the light coming in from the galactic core. That is the whole 2012 awakening. That is the ascension process. And when I say these light codes are coming in from the galactic core and the central sun, that galactic core, that central sun, and that memory field is your DNA. That's what it is. Your DNA is the galactic core. It is the light codes. It is the central sun. It is the physical sun. And it is the memory field. It's not a place outside of us. Well, there's this strange place that we go to when we die if we've managed to individualize our memory. No, it's there now. But if you haven't woken that up, then you're living within a carbon-based physical body. And you don't have the connection with that individualized memory field. Once you start to wake up the DNA structure, then that DNA structure becomes that memory field and you start to be it. That's why your memories are coming back. And when I say memories, that suggests that they're memories from the past, because in a linear sense, that's how we see memory. We see memory as something that once happened. But really, those memories are knowings. They're memories from the future, the present, the past, and all other directions as well. They're knowings. They're not really memories. But in a linear sense, we understand them by saying they're memories because we live in a linear sense. We live in a linear reality, a linear pathway. So this sacred reunion that's occurring on the physical level was set for the end of the Mayan calendar timeline, the 13th Baktun, which is the long Mayan count. And that was the Mayans. I haven't studied the Mayans specifically, but I can say from the 9, the Mayans understood about time, cyclical time. So time is a cycle, time is a spiral. It's not linear. And the Mayan calendar shows this. So if you're someone who understands the ancient mathematical system, then the Mayan calendar is a good one to study because it's accurate. But in our interpretation, in a linear calendar, it would be 2012. But that doesn't mean the year 2012. It means 2012 around about. So it could be 2012 and 30 years one way and 30 years the other way. Let's sort of, when you're looking down as a observer viewpoint, 2012 is like sort of 60 odd years, maybe 100 years even, possibly longer. But 2012 is the core point for that. And of course, we're now in 2019 and we're right in the 2012 energy still. These incarnations projected forth by the Atlantean priests, masters and magicians of space and time are you. So you are all the incarnations. You are the result of, metaphorically, these 12 priests, and more accurately, the memory field, the incarnational memory. So every person who's come into alignment with this material has individualized memory. None of you who's listening to this material have come into this reality as a new recycled soul whose memory's been lost. You are all holding individualized memory, meaning you've retained your memory through the death process from other incarnations. You might not remember that incarnation, and it's not even about remembering that incarnation, it's about the knowing of that you know that is you, and you will have that knowing, because that knowing will be, it's just a yes. You may even think, I don't know how, I don't know what Magenta's talking about, I don't know what this means, but yes, I feel that this is actually true, I feel that this is me. Everyone, this is literally millions of us who are all part of this Atlantean consciousness, Arthurian consciousness, Arcturian consciousness, Christ consciousness. It's all the same thing, presented in different ways. The wisdom teachings from the Atlantean times are your own memories and knowings. So that's the wisdom teachings. There's no wisdom to teach. There's simply wisdom, and you have it, and it's all there within you. You just have to wake it up and start to work with it. They were preserved within the very matrices of your own energy system, within the matter that's your tissues, organs, muscles, skeletal system, brain patterning, hair, nails, and blood. So I've explained about all of that and how it's preserved within each and every one of us. Rich within your DNA are these codices. And just talking about it is triggering that. Just me saying to you now, rich within your DNA are these codices. You might be thinking, what does that mean? But your DNA is saying, yes, I am the codex. That's me. She sees me. I want to be seen. That's what the code will say. It wants to be seen. It wants to be known. Some of you chose genetic incarnations leading towards a penchant for the work of the artist. So some individuals have come in with great artistic skill. And even though they may not consciously be aware of all this, it's in their work. It's in their paintings. It's in their photography. It's in their drawings, however they're presenting their art. Same with the speakers, the writers. I mean, you can look at fictional writers, children's fictional storytellers, and there's so much truth there. You can see it in the films that you watch and the dramas, the serial dramas that are now sort of on Netflix and everything. I mean, it's everywhere, and you can watch things and think, goodness me, that's true, or I had a dream that mirrors that, or these teachings are everywhere, and they will come and show themselves to you within this reality of synchronicity that you've created. In this transmission from the White-Winged Collective Consciousness of Nine, I, Magenta Pixie, bring forward information specific to utilising the rose gold flame as antidote to 5G, EMFs, chemicals, chemtrails, and similar. The presented template utilises the Schumann resonance, and the technique is alchemical unification. In this book, the Nine discuss synchronicity, discernment skills, and understanding of discordance and disharmony within truth and lightworker communities. They present a workable model of expression, assisting the spiritual explorer in creating a necessary toolkit. This allows the individual to construct a shield, bringing safety, harmony, expansion, and cohesive sovereignty into their own personal reality and their matrix field. I am pleased to present my new short book, The Black Box Program and the Rose Gold Flame as Antidote.